You're the Florida version of Sex in the City, JD.
That's when I was smoking my cigar.
Never stop chasing your dreams.
And never say never.
Don't be an asshole today. We've got Libby with us from We Are Biscuit. This is Biscuit. I've been following them for a really long time, and I'm really super glad that we've got her on the show because I still don't quite know exactly what they do. Or I know it's kind of like a resource hub for our bisexuals in our LGBTQ community. Yeah, I thought how cool to have Libby come on and tell us more about it. So let's let her in. She's in the UK.
I left the C out of Biscuit.
You are not a Brit. You are not a Brit.
You move over.
Let me just correct that.
Yeah. Let me correct it. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Can you hear us okay?
I can, yes.
Oh, brilliant.
Can you hear me? It sounds like.
Yep. Libby, it's great to have you because I was just telling JD, she's in South Florida. I'm in South London. Where are you?
I'm in London. I'm in South London.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
I was telling her that I feel like I've been following you guys for a really long time, since Twitter days, and then on Threads. I'm super excited that you made Yeah.
Wonderful. That's so lovely to hear.
It was great that you made the move, and you were so honest that you were coming over from Twitter. It meant you were losing a lot of followers. You were coming to Threads. It was a new start. You were a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, what can we do to help? That was the first thing. And the second thing is that I was extremely excited to have you because I was just explaining, I'm not quite sure what Biscuit does. what it does. Are you a group? Are you a Substack? Are you a resource hub? Do you do in-person meetups? So I'm going to let you explain. Yeah, what is?
The answer is yes. We do resources. We do events. We do one-off events for celebrations like Bi Visibility Day, but we also do meetup groups when we can. It doesn't always work out. There's only 3 of us who do, all of this.
Oh, wow.
So we work with other charities, and we work with charities where we're not a registered charity, although we do take donations. We work with big LGBT charities and talk about how they can make their services more inclusive for bi people. We'll go to a corporate and tell them how to look after their bi staff. There aren't a lot of organisations for the bi plus community, so the ones that exist kind of have to be a little bit dynamic, I guess. You have to have your finger in a lot of different pies.
Yeah.
But a lot of those skills are really transferable. A lot of it is about just communicating, which you can do in all sorts of different contexts.
Yeah, it's so true. And you're right. I do feel like the bi community kind of gets left behind,
Absolutely.
A little bit, it's but I see that changing. I mean, I really do. I see
very much
that changing a little bit more. We had a friend of mine on the show, Carrie, and we had worked together for 3-4 years. And about a year after the business got sold, but we stayed in contact, and we're always texting and everything. And she was pregnant. She had her baby. We still stayed close, and out of the clear blue, she just texted me one day and said, "Do you have a minute? I need to tell you something." And I'm like, "Sure." And she was like, "I'm bisexual." And I was like, "What?" New incoming information. Um, but you know what? She's 20. I think she was 22 at the time, 22. And it was all so new to her. And I asked her if she would come on the show and just talk a little bit about that and what the experience, what led up to it, what it was like, finally telling people. And it was really informative. But one of the things that stuck with me the most, even now, even after all this time, um, is that she finds it really hard to find things to do as a single mom, being bisexual. I mean, she's on her own with the kid. And the first place I pointed her to was to you guys, and just
Right.
send her the information and just said, have a little peruse, and
I
we,
remember that. I
yeah,
think I remember you mentioned it on the show.
I did. Yeah.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and, and I think it was really helpful because it's a nice way to, find a group of people that almost already know your situation in a way,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Hmm.
and you don't have to go through a lengthy explanation. You just have to be yourself, and say, I don't know what to do with this, and
Yeah.
that's really where she was at the time. Um, but I
It,
just think that's what happens. Like they make this proclamation, they've come to this realization about themselves, and then they just don't know what to do with it. You
yeah.
know,
I think it's such a big deal coming out,
it is. It
and,
is.
and we spend a lot of time working towards it and wrestling with it. And then it feels like it's a frontier, but it feels like an end point. And then you get there and you've opened this door and it's like, oh, well, what now what?
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's
Yeah, and
literally like,
especially young people, and especially coming online these days. It's much more gentle as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
You don't have to walk into a room of strangers to
right,
talk about this.
right,
You can log on, you can do it on your phone, even no one has to know,
right,
and you can
right.
really kind of gently bring yourself together.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, lucky
yeah.
kids.
It was great though. Like, I know, right? The stuff we went through, Jesus. But I mean, it was amazing because you don't often hear, how do I ask a woman out?
Yeah.
Who pays? Where do we
Right.
go? Right? Like these were all these things that were like first and foremost on her mind. Where can I meet someone? I work 8 hours a day. I'm with my kid in the evenings. How do I, you know, and like JD and I were just like, Joe, I don't know. I don't know, you know. So I just think that having like a North Star, to kind of guide you through it, or just end up talking to somebody about it that's either been through it or in the same boat, whatever. Because I didn't know. Like I actually said, I don't know, I don't. It's not that I don't remember. Everything happened so organically. I think, if
Yeah.
for me, like I untangled myself from a marriage to a man, but I already had lesbian friends in place that were just like,
Hmm.
oh, like, come on, let's go, get in the club, go on, go get a drink, you know. So, I kind of had like built-in support system, there for it. But then it was even funnier because she was asking about like sex questions, and we're like, that'll just come natural. Like it won't worry about it. That'll be fine. But I mean, like you don't really think about what's on their minds after they say that. Like you don't, you
Yeah.
just, we're like so used to where we're at in our lives that we don't really remember what that first year was like or whatever. But I do think that they do have a lot of questions, because
Yeah.
essentially, like, if you're not identifying as a lesbian, where you can just walk into a lesbian bar and know that pretty much everybody there is going to be a lesbian, you know, but if you're at work or you're out to lunch with somebody and you see, some girl that you fancy a little bit, like that's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Like, do you
Yeah.
just ogle her from afar? I mean, do you say something? How do you find out? What if she's not into it? I mean, it's so scary. So I just think, what you're doing is so needed. So needed in a way. And, my wife works for a pretty big company and they have like an inclusion committee,
Mm.
LGBTQ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have like, quarterly meetings to discuss, everything about inclusion and all that. And I just think back to my day and I'm like, oh my God, we had a pride committee with 3 people on it and I was one, like, and I work for the biggest insurance company in North America, and it was just like we put like rainbow streamers on a bulletin board for Pride Week, and that was pretty much it. Like, it's just everything is so different now, and it's big. You know,
Mm.
like you,
I
like
think
you
I
had.
had it.
Go ahead,
Go
Jeff.
ahead. I was to say, I think I had an easier time transitioning into the world because into the LGBTQ entire world because I played in the bars.
Yeah,
So when I finally came out, everybody was just waiting for me to say it. But
yeah, we were.
but I think you're right because back then, Denise, there was nothing happening at work for that, wherever you worked, for people to mention that
Yeah, I
Pride.
mean, like, for fuck's sake, we spend the whole portion of our day in a workplace. You know what I
Yeah, nobody
mean?
says it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing you want to do is hide who you are in some way. I mean, obviously we don't walk around with it stamped on our forehead, but you want to be able to maybe talk to coworkers or whatever and say, "Oh, I went on a date the other night," or blah blah blah, whatever. But
Right.
to be yourself, and even like like that whole time I worked with Carrie, I never suspected it, never in a million years. She was she was
Oh no.
dating one of the cooks, she was dating a guy in the kitchen pretty much the whole time, and then then they traveled to Thailand or whatever, and then they broke up, and then she was with another guy, and so it never occurred to me in a million years. And now I look back in hindsight and I think about all the questions that she asked,
Oh,
Yeah.
because it was
It's often a bit of a clue. Yes.
right. I mean, asking about all the events we did when I knew, how I told friends, stuff like that. And I just thought it was just a curiosity. I thought, like, oh, maybe she just doesn't know a lot of gay people. I had now I go, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But I mean, tell us a little bit about what it's like when you go into a place and have to have that conversation, with a workplace.
It often depends on the kind of workplace it is, for various reasons. So I'll work with the National Health Service in the UK quite a bit, and they really care, and it really matters to be inclusive when you're talking about gender and sexuality,
Yeah.
because when cannot be open about who they are in a healthcare setting, that leads to them not maybe getting educated in ways that are relevant to them about sexual health, which also has reproductive implications. It
Yeah.
also, there's mental health things. So there are certain organisations that are really receptive, really care, and are putting in place things. They'll watch a 20-minute presentation by me, we'll have a long chat, and then I'll get a follow-up email saying, we thought this was really interesting and this is what we're doing. And that's wonderful. That's really encouraging. And I know that those people I will want to work with again. as well,
Right.
which is
Right.
always really helpful.
Yeah.
And then you get the other side of the scale, which is often very large corporates who have a budget, and you can tell that what they are asking is for you to go in and pat them on the back for what they're already doing
Right.
without rocking the boat.
Yeah, just a tick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tick the box. You get you get extra points for diversity if it's a bisexual person.
Yeah.
You know that pops out on the report about how diverse your education has been and how much this and that you're doing. The problem is we can tell when it's one of those cynical requests.
Right. Right.
It doesn't necessarily change the service they receive,
Sure.
but it does. It does affect how much we charge them. Um, you know, people who are running charities and the NHS departments don't pay as much.
Right.
People who are running big corporates pay a little bit more, and then we generally use that to fund overheads, and then every now and again an event of some sort.
Right.
So everything that the Biscuit makes is funneled directly back into the resources that we can provide. None of us take a salary.
How is the turnout for if you do something? Is it, do you find like if you do them randomly and not like often, like a random, do you get more people? Because I always found that like, if there was a place that was doing a ladies' night every Thursday night or whatever, after a while, it would just kind of drop off. You'd forget about it. But
Yeah,
if it was like
yeah.
you hear about, something new, you're going to want to go.
I think that's absolutely right. I think these spaces need to exist for people to go to them, but also just the knowledge that they exist is enough for some people. They feel safe knowing that these spaces exist. They don't need to go, especially if they've been before. So yeah, we do a picnic every year around about when Pride in London have their parade,
Mm.
which is billed as sort of an alternative, a bit more relaxed than going to the parade. It's very overwhelming. That usually, excuse me, that usually brings in about 150, maybe a little bit more.
Mm.
People will come in throughout the day. We'll generally be there about 6 hours. If I do a one-off event like by Visibility Day this year, we're doing a speed mating event, which is I've been calling it speed
That's
dating
scary.
without the D because it's about making friends
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
hooking
Yeah.
up. So we're doing that on the 23rd, which is a Monday evening, which is not a brilliant night for throwing an event in a pub, but that'll just be 40 people.
Yeah.
And then I used to, until COVID came along and kind of put a dampener on a lot of things, I ran a quarterly bi plus dance party slash club night slash disco slash whatever era you come from.
Yeah.
Those different phrases,
Yeah.
Right.
and that would regularly sell out 250 people, and we'd be turning people away.
Wow.
Um, so it really depends. There's a charity called By Pride UK, and they formed maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They ran the biggest bi gathering in the world. I think the world. It could possibly be Europe, but I think the world. Their first event, which was about yeah, I think that was about 3 or 4 years ago. And they do a huge event every year that brings in a couple of thousand people. And then there's BikeOn, which is a long residential weekend, usually in the UK. That's had up to 500 attendees as well.
Fantastic.
So there are
Is
a
the
massive
version,
range of events. Yeah, different
is,
sizes, something for everyone. Coffee
is
mornings, board games.
yeah,
I
that's,
love what you're doing
yeah,
because I've often heard that people who are the B in LGBTQ plus feel so left out because they feel like they're not taken seriously by either side, any of the letters, and they feel
yeah,
like they're forgotten. Have you heard that, Denise? I mean, I think we've had people say that, like they think, oh, well, you're just confused and you just like one way or the other, and they
pick a lane, yeah,
and they
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
the women, I honestly, I don't really know many bisexual men, and I have heard that really there are not many bisexual men. They're either one way or another. That's what I've heard in the past from people in the community. But with women, I hear many times they feel lesbians don't want to date bisexual women because they feel like either they're going to maybe just go back to being with a man because of social pressure, or that the sexual health, because sometimes there's more risk with what a man might bring to the table
right.
if you're protecting yourself. So have you heard a lot of that? Because I think there's sometimes a stigma is that part of the reason why you do what you're doing with your group?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of stigma. There are different stigmas that bisexual men and bisexual women experience. And also, there's a whole host of kind of stuff tapped up with gender and people expecting anyone who is non-binary or gender non-conforming to be bi, which is just a whole other, it's
Yeah,
putting an expectation of bisexuality on one group of people while saying it doesn't exist in another, basically.
right.
So yeah, it's difficult because there are a lot of myths, and they've had a long time to take root. So a lot of them are just taken as fact
Yeah,
Yeah.
these days. Yeah, and we do a lot of work to combat that, and things have improved enormously since certainly since I came out. I came out in 1998,
hey, me too.
and yeah,
What a
that
year,
must
what
be
a
a thing.
year.
Thank you.
But yeah, things have changed enormously since then. But a lot of these myths are very pervasive, and it's understandable that a community that has been persecuted is going to want to protect itself. That
Mhm.
is understandable.
Sure.
The issue comes in when you're protecting yourself against the wrong people.
Yeah.
We are members of the community, and we shouldn't be let out because of
Yeah,
this thing that you don't actually know is happening. You just have a feeling it might happen.
right.
And a lot of that is just about kind of being present in the community. The
Yeah,
more that we are there and visible, the more it will be normal, for want of a better
right,
phrase, to
right.
have us around, and we'll be seen as deep and complex and um, different from each other as any other kind of demographic that you want to
Sure.
name.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels like bisexual, there's so much more work. You know what I mean? It's almost like they have to explain
Mhm.
themselves so much more. And
Yeah.
it's not really fair, you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't have to, you know, um, have these conversations. Like it's up to us, the other letters of the community, to do a little bit of research and to have a better understanding and open mind towards it. I was so biphobic when I first came out. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like
that's hard.
when
Yeah.
yeah, like when we had our other podcast back in 2006, 7, 8, 9. my co-host used to give me so much shit about it, on the air, like how wrong it was. And I'd be like, no, 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 like, and it's like, I look back at it and I go, oh my God, like, holy crap. But
Good to have a friend who was willing to argue with you, though, right?
oh, totally, totally. And the thing of it is that I think the more people that you meet that are, and you start understanding it a little bit more, then you can actually champion it and be supportive and be understanding, and that's what led me to change. And then I
Mhm.
also did I hosted a podcasting panel at Clexicon years ago in London. It was the first one they did in London. They usually do it in Las Vegas or Los Angeles. And the directors of it or whatever asked me to moderate a panel on lesbians podcasting and everything. And Rosie
Mm.
Bobby was there. Um, Dana Piccoli came in from LA. And then there were these two women, and I think they were from the Netherlands. I'm probably wrong about this, but I think it was the Netherlands that did a podcast like be positive, bi positive,
Mm.
like that. And they had just started it, and they were two like doctors, and they were so lovely. And I always think, like, I have these fleeting thoughts, like I'm gonna go check and see if they're still doing that podcast, because it
Mm.
seemed like they were on the cusp of it was so niche. I mean, this is going back, I think, I want to say 2017, 2018, around there. And they were super excited about it. They were really open about talking about it and why they wanted to do it. And the fact that they were one was a mental health therapist, and another one was an actual doctor. And it was just really cool that they combined, the first of all, the fact that they were both bisexual, and just put it right out there, but to combine their knowledge in both fields and apply it to that community, for that community, was really like I honestly, if I could have spent the whole time talking to them, I would have. It was really cool. But it was, so I mean, going back, just a few years ago, it still felt new to be talking about it so openly, and
Yeah.
wanting to get that communication out there for people. So I think, and you guys have been around since when, Libby?
10 years. It was 10 years in January. Yeah, so we were founded in 2014 by a wonderful woman who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. She was a writer, and her name was Charlotte Dingle. She was absolutely fabulous, and she was awarded her doctorate posthumously a
Oh,
couple of years ago, which I think is really telling of how special she was.
yeah.
But she founded the organisation primarily as a magazine that did a lot of educational stuff. And I took over when Lottie was, seeking education, and I'm not very good at maintaining a website, so it wasn't on purpose that we became primarily this kind of advocacy organisation. It was mainly because that was what my skills were.
Right.
That was the thing that I could do.
Yeah.
I'm an organizer at heart. I'm a medical secretary by profession, so I'm admin queen.
Yeah.
And it turns out that this work is mainly admin.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's all emails and
Yeah.
and folding and filing. So yeah, so 10 years, but we're not the only one, as I mentioned. And there's bioactivism has been. I date the beginning of bioactivism in the UK to 1984, which is the year of the first BICON. But in reality, there were a couple of books that came out in the 70s, and there was a small amount of activism in the early 80s that came out of a men's feminist group.
Oh,
Believe it or not,
yeah.
it was a male allies feminist group
Wow.
that got to talking about their own sexualities and how they were experiencing uh, being bi, and that's where all of this in the UK blossomed from, as a couple of blokes trying
Wow.
to be good allies to the women in their
Yeah.
lives, having a conversation.
What an interesting history. That's really cool. Have you ever thought about teaming up a little bit with Queer Britain?
Yeah, I've never done anything there myself, but I was supposed to be there about a month ago, and I sprained my ankle on the way to the event.
Oh, gee.
So
Oh,
I wrote a chapter in a book called, in fact, yes, here it is, called "It Ain't Over Till the Bisexual Speaks."
Oh, I love it.
excellent. Excellent.
Which is it's a line from a famous speech by an American activist who spoke, I believe, at the Washington March in 1991. Lani Kahumanu is her name. So I was going to an event. I do get carried away with my stories. So I was
Okay,
going to an
that's what
event
we're
to
here for.
launch this at Queer Britain, and I never got there.
Oh,
Was
And
it the
I
spray tan?
ended up in accident and emergency instead.
oh, geez. Well, I'm
Did your
sure
ankle
they'll
get
have you.
better? Did your ankle heal? Because ankles are tough.
Oh yeah, I mean it's fine now, just about. But I reckon it'll be able to start. It'll be predicting rain
I was
when
gonna
Oh,
the winter
say,
comes. I'm that
exactly.
age now, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But that's great, though. I'm sure they'll have you back. They seem to be doing things all the time, so
They
be
really are
be
great.
able to
Yeah,
slip right
yeah.
in there. Yeah, that's a really the thing I liked about them was that they were they really embrace the history part of it, which is the thing that most people either don't know about or don't care about. And the
Mhm.
fact that you know, they they started from such a small thing and have grown and now have bricks and mortar, actually have a museum and all
It's
that.
fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they make it so engaging as
Yeah.
well. They're doing such a good job at putting the information out there.
Yeah. I had a really good chat with Paul. His name is
Yeah, yeah.
Paul. Yeah. I had a really good chat with him one time for a show, and I was just blown away by what they're doing. And then part of my wife, like I said, they do these, quarterly LGBT inclusion meetings or whatever. And a lot of times they'll go to different places. They went to the old RAF museum before, and they went to Queer Britain. Um,
Mm.
as a group, like they went to Queer Britain. And so I really I love places that do something like that that will host, a
right.
group of people from from a workplace. That's pretty interesting. That's really cool. I think uh I think back to like when I left Twitter and I had the same feelings, that you did. Like I just walked away from 15K, followers and started over there. And I think I was telling this to JD yesterday that we get more engagement. It's so much, you have so much more control over what you're seeing and who's following you and who's commenting. And if somebody does say something out of line, you can just hide it so there's no pile on. You can, block right away. You can make a post that might think, oh, I'm probably going to get some kickback on this. And you can make that post where the only people that are allowed to comment are the people that follow you.
Mm.
So you're not getting randos coming in and spewing shit. So I think, the fact that you have a little bit more control over it, and the fact that you can only use one hashtag,
Oh,
like
I love that. Yeah.
I get
beautiful thing.
overwhelmed. I
Yeah.
get overwhelmed, and then I just don't make the post because I'm like, I don't even know what to do, and then I get too much on my, too many ideas. You're right. The one hashtag makes it so much less pressure.
It's
When
yeah,
I
and
got over there today, as a matter of fact, after we talked about it yesterday, I
oh,
meandered over to Threads, and I do have a Threads account. I just don't do anything with it. So I'm going to start working on it because I want to start posting to that. And
yeah, and
that's
I think it's so quick. Like it snowballs really really fast. Like I was saying to JD on our Rainbow Remix Instagram, we might only have like 200, 250 followers, but on Threads we have 3,500 already, and it's only
Yeah,
been
that's
a
great.
year, you know?
That's part of the reason I wanted to go over there because I'd rather interact with people, and I don't get interaction on Instagram.
Right.
So
What I feel
Facebook, I
like that I found on Threads is that people
yeah,
are quick to comment, and give you a high five, even if it's just an emoji or something. You know what I mean? Like it's fantastic, and your algorithm on Threads seems to pick up very quickly.
yeah,
If you hashtag something and then you start getting, a little bit of engagement on that, you'll see your feed filter down, start to become a little bit more focused. And I think it's fantastic. And Libby, I'm with you as far as Twitter goes. It just became a toxic cesspool of hate.
It was awful,
Mm,
and I mean, I can say, well, we had however many followers, but it wasn't that number didn't reflect the engagement that we were getting by the last 6 months, last maybe year even.
mm.
It's a sewer now.
Yeah, it is.
It's horrible, and it's ruled by this climate of I don't know how to describe it. Everyone's on the defensive all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah,
Everyone expects the next comment to be hateful
hate.
or a
Yeah,
slur or an
yeah,
argument that doesn't make sense,
totally.
and that
It will
that
be.
atmosphere is just not there on Threads, and that is so refreshing to
I
me.
feel like the people, especially like what I notice, like on our remix on our Rainbow Remix account, it's super queer, all inclusive, very rah rah, and then on my personal one, it was a little bit gay, and then it was like a little bit food related things because I love the food. Um, and then after the Democratic National Convention in the States, like it became unbelievably political, which was great
Mhm.
because it's all blue wave, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz kind of stuff. And I think I even posted today, I finally feel like it's okay to be hopeful. It's okay to be happy. Like I feel like for the last 8 years, there was this orange dust of dystopian apocalyptic, we were all just trying to get through it every day. And and I don't know, maybe it was because of all the for 4 nights I felt like everybody was in it together talking about the DNC, and the entertainment and the roll call and Little John being there and John Legend, Sheila E, Pink, everybody was just going berserk, and the speakers were so inspiring and blah blah blah. And we were all together for that 4 days watching the same thing, talking about the same thing. And even like I was so worried that it was going to be over that Friday, like when there was no convention, like, oh no, what's going to happen? But I feel like it's just kickstarted everybody's joy, for lack of a better word. And I don't feel like I used to feel trepidation when I would log on to Twitter. I'd be like, oh God, what am I gonna, oh, here we go, But I don't feel like that anymore. And again, like I said, I think the engagement, especially and I feel like brand marketers, for Wendy's and Taco Bell and KFC and I follow like almost everybody, Starbucks, blah, 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 all of them, Dunkin', and they're all like even the television channel 5 and E4 and all them, like it's like they're all in their own social media weird war jokey kind of thing. And it's like, how refreshing is that it's not just some blatant ad about whatever new menu item they have. Now they're like digging at each other and poking the bears, and it's like, oh, this is fun. This is all right.
getting
Yeah,
to
Yeah,
know behind the burger.
it's fun, but I guess I mean, I'm quite cynical, and I think, well, they're just all they're doing is they're getting inside my head. They're doing it by being matey and jokey, but it's
Yeah,
still working.
it's there,
And
right there.
I resent myself for falling for it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I did like an open call for everybody to take the summer off because it was starting to get annoying. You know, summer off. You know, give yourself a little break. But honestly, I think it's just a different feel. You know, like I always say, like at this point, Facebook's for your mom. You know, it's a lot of community engagement bait. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I'm just not there for it at all.
Hmm.
You know, and I don't see a
Hmm.
lot happening. Like it's just there for me to look in and see my cousin's baby. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. But and Instagram, like I said, we never get the engagement, like people commenting or talking. It's just like everybody's just hitting the like if they like it and just scrolling by. And but Threads just seems like a fucking party day after day. And I'm
I
there.
if you get
It's great.
follow you on Threads, then they'll find you on Instagram, right? You might get the same people because I notice people have people following them on both places because people
They
that have
have to because
really say
you can't message
because they
on
oh,
Threads.
okay, I see.
So
I'm gonna get
yeah, they'll end up
Libby. I
following.
have a question for you. Is that true what I said before? Because I just never knew if that information was right. Are women more apt to be bisexual than men? Like, do you find that in your work? Or is that a myth? Is that another myth?
Well, good question. The answer really is that we don't entirely know, because women are a lot more likely to come out as
Hmm.
bi. Men are quite likely to behave in, or more likely than women to behave in bisexual ways, but not label themselves bi. So, and it's very complicated because identity is such a subjective thing.
Right.
Um,
Now,
so there are definitely lots of men in the bi community. There are certainly more men who are happy to come out than there were even 10 years ago. Women are very overrepresented in the community, and a lot of that is actually a side effect of sexualization of women, of bi women. It's seen as a lesser sin as a woman to be bisexual,
yeah.
Yeah.
because it is titillating to men.
Hmm.
Two men together is not necessarily titillating to another straight man, and
Yeah.
therefore it's
Right.
a
True.
different category. And of course, we live in a world where men's opinions rule,
Yeah, exactly.
whether we want them to or not.
Right.
So yeah, men do exist; they do come out, but act as much as women do. And they're really only starting to kind of get feel on what those numbers are.
It's really
Wow.
interesting too because I remember, I think like back in the late '90s, you know, when I was thinking about it, you know, and I was wondering what was going on, you know, like what's happening with me, what's going on, what's going on.
I
My
think
first
it's
thought,
me.
I used to stuttering a little bit.
Yeah. Oh no, it looks like it's all right now. Fingers crossed.
I felt like bisexuality, people attached this thing that was like it's just the first step to becoming a
Yeah.
lesbian or the first step to coming out as a gay man, or you know, it was just a toe in the pool kind of thing. And it's really not, you know, it's really
Mm,
not.
mm,
You know, it's crazy. Like
yeah.
it is so different now, you know, than it was, like you said, like 10, 15 years ago. But, you know, nowadays, I know one of my friends who is an actress is bisexual in a relationship with a man and a woman at the same time and has a baby. And they just,
Oh,
it's polyamory and bisexuality all wrapped into one
yeah.
little, and it's like,
Like,
Right.
welcome to the
whoa,
future, right?
yeah, modern family, you know. But
I think it's fabulous.
yeah, that's what's going on now. You know, it's like people have become I don't want to say, so accepting because, that we're always going to probably struggle with that a little bit, maybe a little less now, but, but I think the thing of it is that this new age, this new generation is so comfortable being,
Mhm.
Hmm.
gender fluid, non-binary, open their identities. I was just saying, like, just when I think I've nailed all the letters and I understand them, now there's more, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like they're gonna have to use a color chart for the flag. It's just gonna look like opening up things at B&Q with paint samples. Like, oh wow, like this is crazy. But I feel like we learn every day. Every day it's a catch up. We're never at the peak of it, like, okay, I think I've learned all there is to be learned. I understand it all. No, 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 you will never understand it all.
Mm.
So I think that an organization like what you've got going on there is a way to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That it's never ending. We're always learning more about, like you said, you're learning more about numbers right now. Like it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and it is extremely a fluid situation. You know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you have to stay on top of it, and that's kind of what you do too, which is great because a 15-year-old might reach out, as opposed to a 22
Right.
year old, as opposed to a 30-year-old. So it's just always changing for the better. And
Mm.
someone, that goes, what, we're gonna be a hub for this kind of thing,
Yeah.
and and be a resource, for people, for businesses, for the community. It's just fantastic and important and needed. So,
Mhm.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You know,
I'm
it's
not. I'm not
great.
very used to receiving compliments.
Oh,
I've
well,
never.
you should.
I've never quite got that grown-up skill nailed
Ah,
yet. But
Yeah.
I just sit here, kind of.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
I
But
very much appreciate it. It touches my heart. I just don't know what to say.
no, no, that's, what, humble's good. But even just, to take an hour out of your late night,
yes.
to
Thank
tell us
you.
about it, because, when we put our podcast up, it goes to Spotify and it goes to iTunes and it goes to Deezer and Stitcher and all these other platforms that I don't even track anymore. I don't even, there's just so many.
And
And
South Africa.
and yeah,
And
and
South.
they play us on gay SA radio in South Africa. So, our reach is far, and and I hope that it helps, because I know that you're here and you're in the UK, but I still think that if someone reached out from anywhere, that you'd be a fantastic person, to contact and lead them in the right direction. So,
Well, thank you. We do try. I worked with an organisation in Kenya just a couple of weeks ago.
oh,
So, you know,
fantastic.
we do. There's not much you can ask of us that we won't do, or
Oh,
we won't find someone else to do.
That's
Because we all
fantastic.
know each other in this game. It's
Yeah, it's
if
so
I can't
true.
do it, I know who can.
Right.
great.
So really quick before we say goodnight, let people know where they can find you. What name, what is your handle on Threads is We Are Biscuit.
It is, yeah. We underscore R underscore biscuit. Our website is thisisbiscuit.org.uk. I know they don't match, it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Um,
All we have to know is biscuit, and that's perfect.
yeah, we've got a link tree in the threads, and that will take you to organisations that we partner with, as well as some advice pages, as well as some um, leaflets that you can download, and our Etsy shop as well, which is where a lot of our funding comes from.
Oh,
So
great. Oh,
That's
perfect. Libby, that's
thank you for your
fantastic.
time.
Yeah,
it's
thank you
so
so
lovely
much.
to have spoken to you. You were so kind on Threads, so
I know what it's like. I
welcoming. I
know what
was
it's
like,
like.
yes, I found my people.
You have. We'll,
Can't
we'll,
wait to get
yeah,
there.
but that's the feel of it, is that if I see a post, I'm gonna like it, I'm gonna, repost it so other people will see it. And that's how we grow, and it'll happen. And it'll probably happen faster than you think.
It already is. It's been the last 3 days have been absolutely mind-boggling. The amount of conversations I've had, new people I've spoken to, the amount of just support
Yeah.
messages.
Yeah.
And again, from a whole paragraph to a single emoji, and they are all so heartwarming.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute joy, and I really look forward to what happens next.
Well, great. I'm happy that you're finding it, all that I find it to be. So we'll see you on the socials.
Yeah,
Yes.
lovely. Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank
I'll
you
see you
so much.
again.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
you a link so you know when the show goes up, and we'll
Beautiful,
put it out there too on the
beautiful.
socials.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna go straight to my bed now.
great. Have a good
Enjoy
night.
your evening.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. My addiction. And I confess, my addiction is you. Don't ask me why I'm here tonight. I had to take this midnight drive to find you. And as I come in through the door, I see her dancing on the floor beside you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. You look at me and in my eyes you see the hurt I can't disguise. I watch you, and though it seems I look right through, I'm noticing your every move. She's got you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. You're my addiction. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. I turn away to mask the pain, but jealousy reveals my rage and madness. And knowing you can read my mind consumes me in a shameful kind of sadness. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. You are my drug, my ever waking need. I got you in my blood. You've got me on my knees. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I